Fermentation. It's this process that feels like, well, magic, right? Think about all our favorite foods. Beer, cheese, sourdough. They all come from this process. It seems like you're just turning simple stuff into something totally new and delicious, but it's not actually magic. It's science. Specifically, it's biochemistry, and it's all driven by trillions of tiny, invisible life forms. So what's the secret? What is really going on here? Well, believe it or not, the whole thing is basically a fight for survival. It's a microscopic feeding frenzy that only happens when these little organisms can't get any air. Sounds wild, right? Okay, let's dive in and unpack this.
It's the secret that takes something like sweet grapes and turns them into complex, amazing wine.
Or how about this? It takes plain old cabbage and transforms it into that zesty, tangy kimchi that's so good.
And yeah, it's what makes simple flour and water rise up into that incredible, airy sourdough bread that pretty much everyone loves. It's all the same secret. Okay, so at its very core, fermentation is just how tiny things, we're talking yeast and bacteria, eat when they can't breathe. Seriously, it's like their emergency backup plan. You could even call it their high-speed, no-oxygen food hack. Look, every living thing, you, me, the tiniest microbe, we all need energy. And the way we get it is by breaking down sugars. That very first step is something called glycolysis. It's totally universal, happens in all known life. It just takes glucose, breaks it down into the stuff called pyruvate, and that releases a little burst of energy. But what happens after that? Well, that all comes down to one crucial thing. Is there any oxygen around? And right here, every cell faces a huge choice. If there's plenty of oxygen, great. Organisms use what's called aerobic respiration. Think of this as the super efficient main highway for getting the most energy possible out of that pyruvate. It's the preferred method, for sure. But what happens when the oxygen runs out? Like when you seal cabbage in a jar or submerge grapes in a vat? Well, that's when the microbes flip a switch. They go straight into emergency mode. And that mode is fermentation. They literally don't have time to process the pyruvate the normal way. They just have to dump it and dump it fast so they can keep making just enough energy to stay alive. And guess what? That whole dumping process, that's what creates all the amazing byproducts that we happen to love. So, this pyruvate waste problem, how do they solve it? Well, let's check out solution number 1. And this one comes from our good friends, the yeasts. We're talking about alcoholic fermentation, the genius process that gives us beer and wine. And it's honestly a beautifully simple process. The yeast just eats up the sugar from, say, grapes or grains. Then, to deal with all that pyruvate waste that's building up, it spits out 2 things. The first waste product, ethanol. Yep, that's the alcohol. And the second one, carbon dioxide, the gas. And this is where the genius of our partnership with them comes in. I mean, think about it. The yeast is just desperately trying to survive, frantically getting rid of its own toxic waste. But us humans, we got smart. As the saying goes, we decided to drink the waste and bake the gas. It's perfect. You know those amazing airy pockets in a loaf of sourdough? That's just trapped CO2 from our tiny little partners doing their thing. But okay, yeast isn't the only microbe out there with a clever survival hack. Not by a long shot. Let's meet another team of microscopic superstars, lactobacillus bacteria. Their solution is called lactic acid fermentation, and this is the secret sauce behind everything from yogurt and cheese to kimchi and sauerkraut. So just like yeast, these bacteria are chowing down on sugars, whether it's the lactose in milk or the carbs in cabbage. But here's the key difference. Their waste product is totally different. Instead of alcohol, they take that pyruvate and turn it into lactic acid. And let me tell you, lactic acid is kind of the hero of this part of the story. It basically has superpowers. First off, flavor. It's what gives food that sharp, tangy, sour taste that we just love. Second, preservation. The acid makes the environment so hostile that all the bad bacteria, the spoilage kind, they just can't survive. It's a totally natural preservative. And third, health. These bacteria are the probiotics you're always hearing about. They're the good guys, and they're fantastic for your gut. Okay, but here's the really mind-blowing part. Ready? Your body does this exact same thing. Yeah, you. When you're doing an intense workout and your muscles are just screaming for more oxygen than you can breathe in, what do? They flip the exact same switch. They go into lactic acid fermentation mode to get a quick burst of energy. That burning feeling you get in your muscles, that's the lactic acid. You are literally fermenting.
So, when you kind of zoom out and look at the big picture, you realize fermentation isn't just some cooking technique. It's this absolutely incredible partnership, right? We've somehow learned to harness the desperate survival strategies of these microscopic organisms, all to create some of the world's absolute greatest foods.
And it's not a new thing either. This is a partnership that's been going on for something like 10,000 years. For thousands and thousands of years, we've been capitalizing on this microbial emergency plan, using it to turn the simplest ingredients into these complex, delicious, and super long-lasting foods.
So really, the main takeaway here is this. The next time you sit down to enjoy a piece of cheese, or a slice of sourdough, or even a glass of beer, just take a second and remember what's really going on in there. It is all thanks to trillions of tiny, hungry organisms just doing their absolute best to survive in a world with no oxygen.
It's just such an amazing peek into this invisible world that's happening literally all around us and even inside of us all the time. So now that you're in on the secret, now that you know how this ancient magic really works, I've got to ask, what are you going to ferment first? Let me know what you're thinking down in the comments.